I want to know how you came up with the name Destination DIY. Where did that come from?
I knew you were going to ask me this, and it's so hard to answer because, well, I'll tell you what the name used to be. So when I first started the show, it was called DIY Portland, and it was called DIY, Portland.
Okay.
And there was a very specific reason for the comma, two actually. So one was that it was kind of a command. It was like, do it yourself, Portland. But then it was also like a destination. It was like Portland, Oregon, DIY, Portland. But in print, nobody could ever remember the comma. It drove me crazy. I was always like, thank you so much for writing about my show, but there's a comma. I realized that was kind of obnoxious, and I thought when I took the show to OPB that, you know, I also wanted to kind of incorporate more stories from around the country, and I wanted to kind of change the show a little bit, as it was going to be an hour. So I thought, now I can expand it to talk about places other than Portland and still, you know, be based in Portland. And Destination DIY started out as a name for the website because the word, the website DIY Portland was taken. Oh. And so we went through a couple different permutations and settled on Destination DIY. And so it was kind of a natural choice to change the show name to that eventually.
Okay. Well, what about the different people that you have on that, or I guess you don't really have the people on the show as much as you go out to them and record them probably in their setting. But how do you decide what do-it-yourself projects you're going to have people speak about?
Well, it's really about the people for me. It's about people and stories. Okay. And, you know, we talk about projects on the show, but people often make the mistake when they haven't heard the show that it's going to be instructional, that they're going to learn how to do something from the show. But, I mean, you've heard the show. It's not really like that.
Right. And that's what I thought it was going to be, too.
Yeah.
So, and
you're not alone.
Okay.
And I think that people, when you think about it, though, it would be hard to tell people how to do something
over the radio.
On the radio, right?
It would be, yeah.
Yeah. So it's really about you know, somebody who's doing something interesting and creative. And what I like about DIY is it's kind of this beautiful intersection between the creative and the practical. You know, so you've got practical skills that are married with a kind of, you know, kind of creativity that's very interesting to me. And so if somebody's doing something that's interesting and there's a good story about why they're doing it or how they're doing it, and they're just an interesting character, then that's something that I'm interested in.
Got it. So it's much more about the story than maybe the subject of the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So how did you come up with that concept? Where did that come from? Because I think that's really cool that it's about the story. You know,
the economy show is very much like that. We had an economist who was the voice throughout, where, you know, we kind of talked to him about, you know, different things as we introduced the subjects, but he was kind of a thread throughout the story.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about, and I don't know, since it is about the story, what about people who are doing things that are very, you know, very, very much out of almost an activist standpoint, but, you know, they're doing something. Do you ever do those types of stories, or do you have an interest in that? Like somebody who's,
sure
you know,
exactly.
hardcore about a particular type of recycling maybe, or stem cell research, or, you know, things like that maybe are controversial, but somebody's doing something about it and it's their story. Do you think you would ever do that, or have you ever done any of that?
Well, I think the most controversial thing that we've done thus far has been maybe the meat segment that we did about butchering your own meat. And the woman who is behind the Portland Meat Collective, which is a group that has these classes where you can learn how to butcher and slaughter your own meat, she calls herself a meat activist, and I thought that was really interesting. Huh. And, you know, because you think of food activism as really centered around vegetarianism or veganism,
right.
Or kind of, I don't like this certain kind of whatever, or how it's produced. But for her, it was very much a sort of a proactive thing, and saying, like, I'm not really okay with the way that meat is produced, you know, in mass production, and so I'm not going to not eat meat. I'm going to try to find a way that I can do it myself, and teach other people how to do it themselves. And I thought that was really fascinating.
Did you get any flack from people who disagreed, or?
I got 2 emails.
That's all?
Yep. That's it.
That's pretty good. And it's good too that you do get some feedback that, you know, that way too.
Yeah, but OPB didn't get any complaints when those shows aired, so
really?
I was very pleased about that.
Good.
And I did warn people, so there's a fair warning if you listen to that episode.
Yeah. OPB aired 5 of the shows, and now you're going to be going into producing more with hopefully the funding so that you can do it, because I understand everybody got paid except you.
Yeah. Well, and my assistant producer didn't get paid either, so hopefully the two of us will get paid this year.
Get a paid check this time. People can still listen to those by going to iTunes and downloading the Destination DIY show. And then do you have links also on your website?
Oh yeah, and you can play the show directly from the website, and there's all kinds of extra content on the website too.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And you have links, I noticed, to the different photos of the things that people have talked about on the show, so that's pretty cool. So what is it like trying to find funding? How do you go about doing that for your show? Is it through sponsors, or
I do have some sponsors. When you listen to the show, you'll hear, Scrap is actually my biggest sponsor. They're the School and Community Reuse Action Center in Portland, and they're a great organization. It's a really natural pairing to have them underwrite the show. And basically, they're a sponsor. There's other organizations and businesses that are kind of like-minded that are sponsors, and that's been great. That brings in a little bit of money for the show. Right now, I've got a campaign going on this website called Kickstarter, which is awesome and very DIY in and of itself. Lets you raise money for creative projects, and that's going until June 11th. We're trying to raise $9,500, and that's a portion of our budget. It's about half of the budget for the year. It's a little more than half of the budget for the next season of shows.
And will that be 5 shows as well?
And that'll be 5 shows, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody was a little underpaid this year. Those who were paid were underpaid, so I'm hoping to be a little bit more legitimate.
So as we go to break, I understand we have a clip, audio clip of your show, and it's got your intro song, but what else is in there?
Well, the song is by Gray Ann, who's a local Portland musician. All the music that you hear in the show is by local Portland artists who've produced music specifically for Destination DIY.
Very nice.
And so you hear the theme song, and then you'll hear me introducing this episode, which the theme of this episode is I Made That. And so I'm kind of introducing that theme, and then you'll hear a short clip from one of the stories in the show.
Perfect. Enjoy, you guys. We'll see you right after the break.
DIY means do it yourself. Sometimes I can do without help. DIY means I try to do it all by myself. La la la.
Welcome to Destination DIY. I'm Julie Sabatier. Whether it's a new invention, a delicious meal, or a crafty project, making something can inspire a unique sense of pride. There's a certain gratification that comes with mastering the challenges and surprises that crop up in the creative process. This hour, inventors, builders, butchers, and artists talk about what inspires them to point and say, I made that. You'll hear about an elaborate doghouse that took over one man's life for a while, an inventor who tackled the limitations of the egg timer in the early days of digital gadgets, and how a knitting project kept one woman grounded over the course of 2 years.
Once you get over the adult thing of being humble about what you're doing, you're just going, oh, dang, that's good.
Stay tuned for all that and more.